This time with our disclaimer today. This is not how we originally planned this meeting to go. I was going to be here to do my welcome and, my normal herd cats kind of work in the meeting, and had Michelle here, or our principal planner here, for CEQA expertise, and Laura, our senior planner, who is entirely dedicated to this project, here to sort of give the project overview. And then we also have a top-notch planning services team with us also, Acorn Development, which are advising us as the project goes forward on planning and environmental analysis. And but today was a fun Monday in the county of Lake. Yesterday we had an emergency, of course, with the fires, so we had staff responding to assist into the evening hours. One of our team members was affected. Luckily, the house wasn't lost, thank goodness. But there's a lot of devastation touching our lives today, and a lot of hope, and that feeling that comes in the times of emergency in Lake County, where all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, what can I do? And we're all gathering together, and I'm taking your horse, and they're taking the kids, and so that was going on as well. So I feel like I've already lived my week, but today we're doing a little nimbleness, a little pivoting, but both Laura and Michelle are unavailable this evening. But luckily, we still have Annalie and Ryan from Acorn Development, the ones who have been offering those planning services and supporting this development project permit application as it's going through now its second rendition. And it's 5 o'clock. So thank you all for giving us some of your evening hours tonight. This is an opportunity for us to gather public input on the Maha Guenoc Valley Mixed Development Project, Take 2.0. Our goal here, the whole reason why we're here, and thank you, Danielle, for Calpine letting us use this wonderful room tonight. But the whole reason that we're here tonight is to give you an overview of the project, to hear your questions, some of which we'll be able to answer, but to also take in all the input that you want to give us this evening about the project. We extended our public input period for another couple days. It was going to end up today, but because we scheduled the meeting tonight, and we didn't want you to have to go home and scramble to write something down in case there was something you forgot to share with us, we are extending that public input portion for another 2 days. So it'll close on Wednesday instead. That's because like most of our projects we've got going on in Lake County right now, public input is essential. Community understanding of the different moving parts of a large project like this is essential. And so this is totally worth our time, and we're really glad to see all of you here. As far as introductions on the county side, thank you to Chair Sabatier over there, who's acting as our tech team tonight. As soon as I see him smiling, I'll know that we're recording this meeting. Excellent, thank you. And then I will pass the microphone over to Ryan, part of our team, so that they can introduce their side. As soon as I do that, just to give you sort of an overall agenda, Ryan and Emily will be giving you the overview of the project. And then we're going to go into the whole point of tonight's meeting is taking the time to hear any questions you may have, which please feel free to approach the microphone at the front, and then give you the answers that we can, as well as making sure that we're taking in input. It's so important that we have a court reporter here tonight who will be capturing as many exact words as possible. So we really don't want to lose any nugget that you might be wanting to share with us this evening. Did I introduce myself? I'm Maria Turner, by the way. All right, bring it over to Ryan now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Sawyer with Acorn Environmental. We are an environmental consulting firm. We specialize in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and related environmental laws. And we are working with the Guenoc development team, but we're taking our direction as it relates to the CEQA document from the county of Lake. And so they are our bosses, as you will, when it comes to assisting with this CEQA compliance document that we'll be discussing today. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Annalee Sanborn, who's going to be providing the presentation.
Hello, my name is Annalee Sanborn. I'm an environmental analyst and project manager at Acorn Environmental. And I'll be providing a brief, well, I hope to be brief, in my overview of the project, as well as discussing how we have attempted to set up this partially revised environmental impact report, or EIR, to be as user-friendly as possible given the guidance and the organization that we have available to us. So to begin, the partially revised EIR process really started back in 2020 during the original environmental impact report process for the original project that many of you are familiar with. And that entire Guenoc Valley project went through a full draft and final EIR process, and that EIR was ultimately approved by the Lake County Board of Supervisors on July 21st, 2020. It was then appealed, and so it went through the court system, and a little less than 2 years later, the Lake County Superior Court required additional analysis for community wildfire evacuation impacts. And so the mandate that the court put forward required more substantial evidence to be added into the environmental document for this project. So this partially revised EIR does two things. First, it fulfills that court direction by expanding the community wildfire evacuation analysis and providing the analysis that the courts required. And second, it is going to be providing an assessment of project modifications that have occurred to the project since 2020. So this draft partially revised EIR is guided by laws, CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and case law that I will very briefly go over. And one of the guiding principles is res judicata, but I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. But as I understand it, that is a legal principle that once an agency corrects the deficiencies that a court has found in an environmental document, further challenges to that EIR based on issues that were raised or could have been raised during the original circulation of that document are not allowed a second time. Furthermore, CEQA guidelines section 15088.5 directs commenters to limit their comments to information that is contained in the partially revised EIR, meaning the revised discussion of the project or its potential impacts related to those modifications. And so based on those legal principles, case law, and the CEQA guidelines, the county is going to have to limit its response to comments to the topics that were provided in the partially revised EIR based on the analysis of the project modifications and the community wildfire evacuation analysis. So with that in mind, it's very important to understand what are the modified project components that are available to review in this environmental document and are available for public comment. These project modifications resulted from a number of different things. One was a voluntary settlement agreement between the applicant and the State Attorney General's office. There's also the inclusion of a new emergency access road called the Grange Road Connector, as well as compliance with laws that were not in effect at the time of the 2020 EIR, including the state minimum fire safe regulations, as well as some new Lake County ordinances that were adopted after that fact. So these project modifications include relocating 64 residential building sites away from the urban wildland interface and increasing the density in the central portion of the property. That new proposed emergency connector road called the Grange Road Connector. That's a little less than 4 miles. It will not be available for everyday project-related traffic. It will be limited to only emergency evacuation scenarios. The overall roadway plan throughout the property was reconfigured so that there are no dead-end or non-looped roads over 1 mile in length, and that is for compliance with the state minimum fire safe regulations. The wildfire prevention plan was also updated to add 10 feet of hardscape on each side of every roadway to provide additional fire break benefits. The camping area in the remote northeastern portion of the property has been removed from phase 1 of the project. There were new funding and staffing commitments for the on-site emergency response center. And finally, various renewable energy and greenhouse gas reduction and emission reduction measures have been added to the project. So as a result of all of these, the physical area in which the project can have impacts across the site has decreased by a little over 500 acres. On this map, if you all can see the colors okay, the orange or yellowish color is the original 2020 area of potential effect, and the blue overlay is the reduced current area of potential effect. On this particular map, the parcels that have been removed from the urban wildland interface are shown in red, and green are what parcels remain. And the development area, the specific building footprints, have been reduced as well. From 2020 to 2024, we are now over 200 acres smaller. So throughout the partially revised EIR and this presentation, we'll be using a lot of terminology that's a little bit unique to this project. This is also available in section 1 in the introduction of the partially revised EIR, so I encourage everyone to not skip the introduction. So the 2020 EIR is the original analysis that was done that is being updated in various small ways to comply with the court order and explain the project modifications. The Guenoc Valley site or project site are used interchangeably, and that refers to the entire 16,000 acre property. Middletown housing site, that is not a modified project component. There are no changes proposed there, but it is how we are referring to the property in Middletown where housing is being proposed. We also occasionally use proposed project and modified project interchangeably, but we try to be very careful that original project is referring to the project looked at in the 2020 EIR. And finally, I've already explained the area of potential effects. That's the phase 1 maximum area of development, while the development area itself is just the maximum area of construction. So the community wildfire evacuation analysis is contained within section 3 of the partially revised EIR and appendix H, and that really is the heart of this partially revised EIR. This is what the court required more substantial evidence to be provided for. The wildfire evacuation assessment was prepared by Farron Piers and the Community Wildfire Planning Center, but it was not done in a vacuum. It was undertaken over quite a bit of time with ongoing consultation from the Office of the Attorney General, Lake County, multiple departments, including Sheriff, County Council, the Planning Department, Public Works, and Social Services, as well as CAL FIRE, Caltrans, and the Lake Area Planning Council. It also complies with the OAG's new guidance for how to analyze and mitigate for wildfire impacts of a project, which wasn't adopted until 2022, so of course was not available at the time of the 2020 EIR. Care was taken by Farron Piers in conducting this analysis to ensure that wherever possible, conservative assumptions were made in their analysis. And so to that end, the wildfire evacuation analysis assumes a no-notice evacuation and that all of the South Lake County communities are evacuated at the same time, so they're not a phased evacuation like occurs in many scenarios, including the 2015 Valley Fire. It also assumes that a evacuation notice would occur on a summer Friday evening, which was found to be the busiest traffic time. It assumes 100% project occupancy, as well as 100% of people evacuate, even though studies show that there is a range of non-compliance, as well as other conservative assumptions that you can read all about it in the partially revised EIR. As a result of this, new wildfire mitigation has been proposed in consultation with Caltrans, the Office of Attorney General, and the county, of course, that are intended to reduce the potential project impacts to community wildfire evacuation. So these measures include some physical improvements within the community, such as improved traffic light timing along State Route 29. There's also some specific improvements as mitigation at the intersection of Butts Canyon and 29, and new emergency signage, among some other things. There's also a requirement for the applicant to fund a traffic management plan specific to South Lake County, and some project-specific mitigations, including keeping shuttle buses on site for all the maximum hotel occupancy to make sure that that's another way of reducing the amount of cars on the road. So in addition to that, section 4 then moves into a discussion of the project modifications, specifically looking at whether they would have a new or substantially more significant impact on any of the environmental topics listed here. The updated analysis did provide some minor modifications to mitigation measures to make sure that the modified project components would have their impacts mitigated to less than significant levels, but no new or substantially more severe impacts were identified. Supplemental surveys were conducted for that effort over quite a few years. Those were for biological resources, habitats, plants, animals, as well as cultural resources surveys. And those surveys were also monitored by representatives from local Native American tribes. So, with that, the next steps in this process, we are here tonight to collect your comments and your feedback. If we can point you in the right direction within the document or answer any questions, we will do our best. But really, we're hoping to collect your comments so that we can review them, think through them thoroughly, and provide written responses in the final PREIR. So that final partially revised EIR will include text revisions to the draft as needed, the response to all of the input that we've gotten so far. Under CEQA, there is no specific and separate public review period, but those comments and the responses to them will certainly be provided for at least the 10 days prior to certification that's required for agencies. And then after that, the decision-making process will mirror what happened in 2020. The county will consider and certify the EIR, decide whether to approve or deny the project, make findings, adopt the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and adopt a statement of overriding considerations if necessary. And then the final step will, of course, be the more paperwork, the notice of determination that gets filed with the state clearinghouse and posted with the county clerk's office. So, as Maria has already said, the public comment period has been extended through until 5 o'clock on Wednesday. So I'll leave this slide up for a little while as well. I'm hoping that you all know this email address, but if not, please jot it down, guenocvalleycomments@lakecountyca.gov. You're also welcome to mail them in, and we really do look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight and seeing the written comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Yes, we'll go ahead and leave that slide up so that you do have an email address where we are collecting all of the comments for this project. Also, the email address is kind of standard in its format because all of the county employees have a similarly worded address with our first name dot our last name. So if you needed to reach out to Laura Hall, who is our senior planner for this project, you can do so by emailing her at laura.hall. It's Laura, Laura .hall, HALL, at lakecountyca.gov. My email address, Mireya, MIREYA, .turner, at lakecountyca.gov as well. We are welcome. This gets us to why we're all here tonight is to start hearing questions and input from people. If you wouldn't mind approaching the microphone at the front, we'll be happy to get this meeting going. Thank you.
So Emily, let me just clear up what you said. So the public comment is going to be restricted just to the revisions of DIR?
I'm sorry, where do you want to
You said you were going to wave or yell at me, sorry, Bruno. Yes, as described according to the state law, when everything about a project except a certain part has been approved, but that certain part is found deficient by the judge, then we are working now when it comes back to address and analyze the changes that came as a result of fixing what the judge said was a deficiency.
Okay, so any other comment about the airport that's going in on Deer Lake? You're not going to accept things like that?
Well, you're welcome to give us your input, however, that's not within the realm of what's being actually considered. Okay.
So, Ryan, I met with you before, and I pointed out that.
Could you also state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
My name is Judson Hodges, and I'm the project's neighbor. So, our concern is, of course, the wildlife, in addition to us living in an airport and a flight path. And so I had reached out to the staff about finding out how the revised plan is taking into account the bald eagles and the ospreys and the Canadian geese that live out there. There's legacy bald eagles nests. And in your Laura's effort to clear that up for me, she referred me to this page 22. This is on the revised, isn't it? 3.10-4. And I don't feel like it adequately addresses, it talks a little bit about the noise, but all the wildlife issues that were referenced didn't even mention an eagle. So can you clarify how you can move forward without, bringing this into account?
Right. So that table that you're looking at there is the executive summary table, which is the first part of the partially revised EIR. It's a very just brief single sentence statements about potential for impacts and then single sentence descriptions of the mitigation measures. The 2020 EIR had a much lengthier discussion of these issues, including noise impacts from the use of the floatplanes and the heliports, as well as how those would impact wildlife. So it was a bit of a two-part discussion because we addressed noise as a unique environmental issue in the noise chapter of the 2020 EIR, and then separately in the biological resources section, we just describe a little bit more about how noise could impact wildlife. And the wildlife chapter of the EIR refers back to the mitigation measures in the noise section. And so I think that that's most likely why Laura pointed you to that specific mitigation measure related to limiting the operational hours of the floatplane dock, because it would prohibit floatplane activity in the evening hours. So that would have some benefits to wildlife. Separately, there was a study related to the average noise levels anticipated as a result of the air traffic that was appended to the final EIR, and that provides a little bit more scientific background on how we looked at impacts as a result of the air traffic. And then in the biological resources section, we relate to that study. So, but as Maria mentioned, we appreciate any additional information we have to share on this topic. We'll be considering it and doing our best, to address it through this process, even though it's not explicitly required because it was not found during the legal challenge to the EIR to be inadequate. But that doesn't mean that we're going to completely dismiss the issue. We'll be looking at whatever comments we provide on that topic.
Okay, so the as I pointed out to you briefly on the noise chapter, what you have listed is less than what the manufacturer of the seaplane is as a maximum decibel. So I think there wasn't enough attention to detail given that, and then also the attention to detail that went into the protection of the wildlife is not adequate. So I won't take up a lot of time. I'll just make my statements that I want to come in and make public record. So I met with Kevin. He came over to the house and met with the neighbors who are directly impacted. And he had indicated that he didn't feel that he will be bringing guests in via seaplane or helicopter. And we were greatly relieved to hear that. And so my suggestion is that we delete that from the proposal, from the project, and then after phase one is done, or as he described as market conditions necessitate, then that be added back in. But at this point, we don't want to live under the specter of having a full-time airport down there. Now, it's been revised down from 10 to 8 flights a day. And again, this is right over our house. 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, 365 days a week. That is completely unacceptable. And I don't want to have to keep fighting this battle every time this comes up. So I respectfully request that that could be deleted from the project or amended somehow. The other thing he also said, and what gave us a lot of relief, is that you're not going to draw the water and build a pump, build a pipeline down Butts Canyon to fill up Peter Lake, which is great too. That's also something that we'd like to have deleted out of the project or amended so that again the town isn't worried about the project cycling up. So those are some great specifics. Okay, those are me. Thank you very much.
My name is Kevin Case. I'm one of the development directors on the project, and I wasn't planning to speak, but I'm going to address some of the comments that came up. We did meet, and one of the comments that came up was about the seaflow plains. And as I spoke to them, I said, we didn't say it would never happen. I don't remember making that statement, but what I did say was the frequency of those was not even close to what we believed was going to happen. We just don't really believe that our guests are going to be coming in on a frequent basis in the seaplane. For us to take that away is not really on the table for us to do so, because again, we're trying to figure out every way we can to make our project be successful. Again, taking it very close into consideration. I appreciate them calling me. We had a nice visit, and hopefully we'll continue to do just that and communicate. On the pipeline, a little misconception on that point too. I said the likelihood of that happening because of the expense, us having to get the easements down Butts Canyon, it's 6.5 miles of roadway, that's a very, very expensive venture. And that we always wanted to maintain that because it was for backup, redundancy, emergency purposes, and there's already so much, and I'm sure Emily can talk a little bit about that too, but there's a lot of monitoring, there's a lot of restrictions on the use of that well. We just can't go down at our discretion and say, we need water, we're going to pump it. We've done a lot of reports, done a lot of research on the aquifer. We're not going to get into those details here this evening, but I just wanted to go on record to say we're going to continue to work with our neighbors. We respect their feelings 100%. And as I told them, I said, the Hodges, I said, I'm going to put myself in your position. I'm going to sit in your living room as though I own this home. This is my home. And we'll continue to do that. But again, we want to make sure that our project obviously is successful, and I'm sure they want it to be successful as well. And we do that by respecting each other. But I just wanted to go on record to just clear that up there. I didn't make the statement that we're going to eliminate. We weren't going to do it.
Clarification as it relates to the EIR analysis, we're always wanting to look at, I don't want to say the worst case scenario that's not foreseeable, but we want to analyze the outer envelope of impacts. So the modeling as it relates to the air traffic, kind of considered on a really busy day, what could the air traffic potentially be up to, and that's what it was based on. So I don't think we intended to say that we believe that would be the average number of trucks that would occur every day, so.
Good evening, and thank you so much for providing this opportunity for us to give you some more information from the community. My name is Kate Schmidt-Hoffman. I have some concerns about recent development and the lighting around the grocery outlet, and the lights go up. That destroys our dark sky and also interrupts with migratory bird patterns. Bats are extremely affected by these tall lights that shine up into the sky. So I wondered if you had, because certainly these schematics are very broad. You're not showing where lights are going to go or what direction you're going to be facing. I'm just hoping that you will consider that when you're putting your street lights in, when you're making your requirements for homes, that people can't put big floodlights out and destroy not only the dark skies for all the people who live around the area, but also for the wildlife who were really here first. So if you can just put that into a note, I would really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. That is a very good comment. We will make note of that for this project specifically, but typically one of our frequent conditions of approval on any discretionary project is to make sure that the lighting outdoors is downward facing, the goal of which is to limit as much as possible maintaining the light effect within that project parcel and not outside in the neighbors. Occasionally we do get complaints about somebody installing a floodlight in Middletown. Like sometimes we have some real flat areas and light really travels. If you ever have a situation like that, feel free to give us a call, because we do follow up on that with our code enforcement personnel.
So how did Grocery Outlet get their?
I don't know, I'm gonna find out.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Just to add to that, I wanted to mention that, and I have to look some of this up because it's not fresh, because we've documents from 2020, but that the project does adopt the dark sky, the International Dark Sky Initiative as part of the design guidelines in the Guenoc Valley zoning district that they've requested the county approve. So dark sky principles are an integral component of the project.
I also want to thank you for being here today. It's nice for us to have you here as opposed to all this time to travel to Lakeport, so thank you. I do want to piggyback on the helicopter situation. When I go to Maine to visit my in-laws, I can only get there a couple times a day. And it seems to me that if we have to embrace whatever you want to do with helicopters and seaplanes, that there could be a way to write into that it's only at certain times of the day, so that people at least know, and it's not just at all times flying in and disturbing their day. That seems to me like a really nice compromise and a way to make the community feel heard. So, and not maybe 5, maybe just 2 or 3, but whatever, and also the route, making sure that the route is as far away from people's homes as is possible. Thank you for writing it down.
Oh. Lisa Johnson.
They don't.
Hi, my name is Shannon Sanders. I live here in Middletown. I'm actually on Buzz Canyon. And I just wanted to address the concern regarding fights and whatnot. Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine who's a fighter in the military, and it sort of ties in with what she was just mentioning earlier. The flight path is critical. So, and probably with a slight modification, it wouldn't be much of an issue at all. I think everyone's concerned they don't want aircraft flying over their homes or whatnot, low altitudes. So that was just a thought. And, excited about the project and excited that they're listening to our concerns too. I think that's important. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Deal Dorms, and I did have the privilege of meeting with Kevin and JB. My concern is the monitoring of the well on the offsite well. So in their hydrology report, 3.9-39 on page 3.9-39, it says that use of the proposed high-capacity groundwater well has the potential to draw down the county-only groundwater. And the way this was addressed, that it could possibly have a significant impact, was to have monitoring for 10 years. What happens after the 10 years? And I did bring this up with them, and they're going to talk to the project people. And I know that the county can make changes. Are they allowed to make changes too if they decide to do that, to have it monitored more than 10 years? That's okay? Okay, I just wanted to have some clarity. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Terry Holbrook, a Middletown resident. My comments are directed more towards the Middletown housing. I'm not quite certain that I've understood or heard responses to what the workforce housing means on the Santa Clara. If there's going to be like buses every 8 hours, taking people back and forth. There's piles of debris on the property, and I don't know what the results are from those, if they're contaminated or if it's just debris. And again, I'm not certain about if there was an EIR directly done on the Santa Clara property. My concerns still are the density of the housing for this project. I'm not quite certain that it really, I know there's a Middletown plan, but I'm not certain that it really fits Middletown. And also, it's a flood prone area or a flood zone area, and we are neighbors to the property, so we are very concerned about changing the lay of land and our property being affected by that. It would be a shame for it to happen and then letting happen rather than not have it addressed prior to. So I would just like to bring those points up, and thank you.
I did just want to mention, because you had a question as to whether or not it was addressed in the original EIR, I wanted to clarify that it was. So there was a full CEQA review during the original 2020 EIR of the offsite workforce housing. And I think a lot of the questions that you have, related to the flood zone and the density, the number of units, it's all explained in the 2020 EIR.
Okay. And the lighting, it sounds like, will comply with the night sky. The dark sky concerns. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donna, and I too would like to thank all of you for being here tonight and giving us the opportunity to speak. And I had actually met with Linda and Kevin Case and JD and BJ, get it right. So what we brought up at that time, and I thought the meeting went really well, I still have a few concerns that we weren't able to work out, and I like to be a problem solver. So I know that we need to grow here. I know that we need, this is an amazing project. I'm not against the project. However, I feel a responsibility to take care of everybody, which is kind of the way I am. It goes all the way back to being raised here and childhood. So one of the issues, the Range Road that we brought up, I asked them, and I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, if it was feasible to connect into Morgan Valley Road through the canyon. Do you remember us bringing that up as an alternative, because 29 gets, it can't handle Hidden Valley. They were backed up through Hidden Valley, through the roads, and people could not get out onto 29 during the Valley Fire. So that was one of the issues I wanted to look at, was is there another option, or what can we do to ratify that where people can actually exit? We had talked about air traffic, and if the routes could be re-looked at so that we're not going over our neighbors on Let's Canyon Road, if that can be changed somehow so that it doesn't impact them as well. I really like the comment that somebody just had about hours, specific hours. That was a great comment for mitigation. I also spoke to them about hiring locally and buying locally as much as possible. And not just the lower end jobs, but the higher end jobs as well, the training, they expressed there's going to be training. I know that that is touched on the IR, but that was something I really want you to put forth by. My biggest issue by far, of course, is the water well off-site on 29 in Butts Canyon. And so since then, we talked about it, and of course, again, I'm trying to look for solutions. I have spoke with Mr. Todd, right back there, with the Calliope water, and one of the solutions that I would like to see is if somehow Calliope can buy the water wells in that area, purchase and provide water out, all the way out, because there's also the threat of the plume, the GII plume. There's also a portion of this that is horrendous. So where we can hook up people in case their wells do get contaminated. Of course, we'd like to stop that before that happens. But if Calliope Water could be the one to take water out for extra water that might be needed, if that's something that could be possibly entertained. So the water well is within the Middletown growth boundaries. I was on the area plan committee that wrote that out. So that could be a possible solution that we can get behind. Thank you.
While we're waiting for our next speaker, I wanted to address the question as to the hours of operation for the air traffic. We do have a mitigation measure in the EIR that limits the operational hours of the float planes and the helicopters to daytime from 7 to 7. So we have a starting point.
That's not limited. They wanted it restricted.
Oh, restricted more. I see. Okay. All right.
That's a long day.
Write that comment.
I'm Todd Fiora. I'm the general manager for Calliope County Water District, and my concern is the optional well as it's put in the EIR corner of 29 in West Canyon. And I mean, that well is about 2,200 feet from our primary source well that feeds the town of Middletown. So it can affect whether it's the plume or water availability, if the drawdowns, if it affects our drawdown or if it drops down so much. It can affect our well. That's our only source of water is groundwater here. So I would like it to be relooked at or removed, and also we'd be open to the discussion about purchasing the property or the well, and with some sort of agreement that we would provide water to West Canyon, to the Guenoc Valley project, and that way we could oversee or monitor it, something of that sort. Or at minimum, at least have the Calliope County Water District in part of the oversight for the duration of the use as well. But definitely like to be relooked at, and if we could sit down with somebody and talk about different options. Thank you.
Hank Glacier. I also want to speak to the well issue. Kevin mentioned that there are restrictions, there's a lot of restrictions. What are those restrictions?
On the use of the well specifically?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact language in front of me, but there is a mitigation requirement that any use of the well be monitored and that for a period of 10 years. But that if the monitoring shows that the use of that well is impacting groundwater within a certain radius of the well. I don't know, Annalene, if you could look, 300 feet. So if there is a drawdown of groundwater within 300 feet of the well, that the well cannot be used and that a groundwater management plan has to be put into place. That management plan has to be prepared by a qualified, hydrogeologist and approved by the county. So after 10 years of monitoring, we would expect that if there will be impacts within a 300-foot radius of the well, that those impacts would reveal themselves within that first 10 years. And then the requirements to put in this management plan would go into effect, and that management plan could be permanent. It would be limited to 10 years. It could go beyond that initial requirement. So.
And who's doing the monitoring?
I don't believe that has been identified at this point in time. But the monitoring reports are required to be submitted to the county for their review and verification.
So it sounds like you'd be open to Todd's suggestion of California Water perhaps being the oversight and being involved with the monitoring.
That will be a question for the county as the lead agency and the decision makers for the project. But yeah, I think definitely a comment that we're going to write down.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cole. Fletcher Thorne is my name. About 8 years ago, Caliome came to me. I was managing the property at the corner of Bus Canyon and 29. And they said they would like to talk to us about buying the well and having an easement going back and hooking up to their system. So in order to do that, we did a water test on it, and we pumped it. I think our maximum capacity for pumping was 2,200 gallons a minute. And we pumped 2,200 gallons a minute for, I think, 24 hours. And the drawdown was almost nil. Caliome said, we'd like to make an offer. And the owner said, well, we will sell you a piece around the well, so you'll own the well, and then an easement around the property hooking back up to Butts Canyon. And they said, great. So their offer was $2,800 for a 2,200 gallon well and about 5 acres of property. So that's why Caliome doesn't have water from that well now. It was such a ridiculous offer that the owner wouldn't even talk to him about it. So the history of that water is, remember this, the water doesn't belong to the landowner, but the landowner has use of that water. If you don't have land over that aquifer, you have no primary claim on the groundwater, the water below it. You get asked for permission to get additional water, but it has to be through someone that has the property over the aquifer that owns the property. The water belongs to the use of the property owner, not to Middletown. Middletown has no claim on that aquifer at all. Caliome has no claim on that water at all. So we tried to help Caliome and it didn't work out. Thank you.
My name is Jim Comstock. I live at 19955 Range Road. My dad and mom came here 81 years ago, and we're on a ranch that's adjacent to the Guenoc Ranch. I've been for 81 years. I'm not quite that old yet. But
Close.
very close. Very close. But having grown up, went to school, lived here, the only time I ever left was 4 years in the Navy to go to college. I love Lake County, I love Middletown. I wouldn't be here with brush rocks and rattlesnakes if I did. And this project, I am intimately familiar with the Guenoc Ranch, being neighbor. Our cows that get over there, the cows that get over on us, and Randy and I have been dealing with that for 40 plus years. But it was a cattle ranch, and then it's cattle and grapes, and now it's cattle and grapes, and now it's the tourism, which is the #1 product for Lake County. Being intimately familiar with the South County area, we have a couple of other things I'd like to talk about. The geysers up here. When the geysers project was started in the 70s, there was quite a bit of opposition to that for various reasons, and it's been developed, and it's the largest geothermal facility in the world. And the job opportunities that have come, we always graduated our kids and pretty much gave them a bus ticket out here to one of these jobs. And the jobs that have been provided by the geysers are multi-generation families that have got very high paying, very good jobs up there. And that's how communities grow. And if you do not grow, you die. And you have to change. And this is a change, and this is a big change for everybody. Another big one is, right out here we have the casino. Probably there's a lot of opposition to that. I think provides a few number of jobs. Gasoline, the most expensive gasoline anywhere used to be in Middletown. Now the most affordable anywhere, which is not cheap, is right out here because of that development. It's been good for us. I support this project because it is good for the growth of our area. What they want to do is to provide jobs for people that live here, for the tourism industry, and it's another phase in the development of that property. At one time, there was talked about that we could all be divided up into 5-acre parcels, and that would have been absolutely disastrous. But if they owned it, they probably could have done it. I'm glad they didn't. I support what they are doing, and our ranch borders them for a great, we got a lot of fence lines together. I know well, and I support the project. The mitigation things that are being proposed and being done are very, very, very intensive, and none of them are being taken lightly. And the fact that you're here listening to all these concerns, you know, I know Jen. When I'm here hunting on my ranch, I can see his house a mile and a half away. And he's got concerns. Everyone has concerns, but I want to publicly voice my support for this project, and I'm a neighbor to it. Thanks.
Different subject, Kate Schmidt-Hopper. I understand that there are development fees that would be applied to our school here in Middletown Unified School District. I'm wondering if you can parse out, maybe Mariah has more information on this, how the development fees would help our school system grow in terms of its budget, so that we have a better, more active teacher base, maybe have an opportunity for maybe even providing teacher housing, because Middletown Unified School District could actually build some teacher housing. So I just wondered if you could give a general idea, because I know there are some people who are quite excited about the possibility of development fees coming into Middletown Unified School District and enhancing our children's education. And if you have any kind of idea when you actually see that come into play, whether is it 10 years down the road, or does it we start to see it pretty immediately? Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. The main fee that comes to mind is typical of any residential development. A lot of us or a lot of our residents who needed to rebuild after Valley Fire are aware of that. Before you can turn in your building permit fee for your house or any other type of residence, like your accessory dwelling unit, your grand unit, something like that, you're going to stop by the fire district and you're going to stop by the school district and make sure that those fees are paid. Other than that, I am not familiar with the exact details of the developer's agreement, but I'm happy to take a look and see if it's reflected there. But I do know that it is a standard fee that's paid for all residential development in California.
Good evening, my name is John Hess. At a recent math meeting, which was attended by Caltrans, we talked about the corridor plan from the South County line up through Lower Lake. and specifically the idea of a roundabout at West Canyon 29 came up. And it wasn't brought up by the community, but by Caltrans, the official that was there for a meeting, that might be something that could be discussed with Guenoc. The typical roundabout apparently costs between $5 and $6 million at this point, and I would just encourage all parties to consider being generous and helping us with that project. We're really going to need it as we grow.
I will clarify that construction of that roundabout is a mitigation requirement of the project, and that the mitigation was expanded in our most recent partially revised EIR as a result of the wildfire evacuation analysis to include more capacity for southbound traffic and southbound movements in the event of a wildfire evacuation. So that is a requirement of the project.
Caltrans alluded to that.
Yes.
Okay, I was expecting more. Excellent, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Tom Garms. I was just looking over this list of the proposed project. What changes are being done to the greenhouse gas emission, and what was the problem before?
So the project modifications pertaining to the greenhouse gas reduction measures include some limitations to the use of natural gas. So there's no more natural gas or propane use in any residential land uses and most commercial uses on the project site, the exception being commercial cooktops. They can still have natural gas, and I believe the like outdoor patio heaters at restaurants. So that is one big change, is the removal of any natural gas. There's been an expansion in the amount of electric vehicle charging stations that will be required for parking on the site. Additional carbon credits, so that was adopted for, I believe, a one-time carbon offset purchase from the 2020 EIR, and that has now been expanded to an annual purchase of carbon offset credits. And I sure do think that I'm missing one. Expanded on-site solar is another one.
Yeah. So they're gonna basically, are they gonna have, do you know if they're gonna have battery storage there, solar panels powering that, or are they gonna power the grid, and then the grid will be charging up the car chargers?
I believe that there is some amount of battery associated with the systems, and the exact details of it actually refer back to the California Green Building Code, because there could be newer developments that could occur between when writing this document and when the actual building happens. So the most up-to-date Cal Green Building Code is what's going to be followed.
Okay. And then just one other thing on my mind, I don't remember being on the reading the previous paperwork and stuff regarding the breaking of ground and moving dirt and everything like that regarding the Puget Creek watershed district. And where is all the runoff going to come when you put roads in and stuff? Are there going to be settling ponds? Is it all going to just go into the lake, which is going to go into the streams and the rivers and stuff like that? Where's all that going to go?
So any project greater than 1 acre in size, which obviously this will definitely be greater than 1 acre in size, must get what's called a NPDES permit, National Pollution Elimination District System. And that has an extensive stormwater control management plan that's going to be associated with that. What will likely happen could be phased SWIPs, it's called a SWIP, the nomenclature, for each portion of the development, and that is going to be based on what is happening at that particular location. So a settling basin might be an appropriate measure in one area that's not really going to be helpful elsewhere, and that is regulated through the state permitting process.
All right, cool, because I know that Yolo County has the right to the water, the rainwater, for this area for the Puget Creek watershed district. So just I was wondering what they negotiated with Yolo regarding that. Because there's other property owners that can't build reservoirs or anything like that on their property because of the Yolo County.
There would be no surface water detainment. The only thing that could happen would just be those localized detention features. And those are intended to allow sediment to basically sit there for long enough and then dissipate in the water and go back into the watershed.
Thank you.
Okay. So Helena again, and I remembered the next part of my question. So first I want to reiterate that we wanted to try to get Caliome to supply the water. So that I think would be huge if that is acceptable. Secondly, the water coming from Middletown, being piped out there, can you tell me where it's going and what it's being used for? It states in EIR to Cedar Lake, but beyond that, we couldn't find where it went.
The concept there is that the offsite well would just be used as a water supply source for the development generally. So there's a water supply system proposed within the site, and it would just basically feed that overall system of water treatment and storage facilities and pipelines.
Okay, but where? Where's it going to be pumped to? I don't understand. I don't know what it's being used for, and we couldn't find that. And we did look.
A diagram. I don't know exactly. I'll have to look.
So could it go, be putting, I'm sorry?
Said the exhibit showed it was being pumped into the lake.
Into, because it said two, but remember we discussed that.
In that area.
Yeah, it showed two, it stated to Cedar Lake, but and then it showed the pipe going around to the backside by the dam. But we couldn't figure out where or what it was being used for. So it is to and into Cedar Lake. Is that correct?
We'll have to get back with you. Yeah,
Thank you.
We've inquired since our meeting, I haven't got the answer yet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin.
And the pumping stations? Do you know where they are?
Yeah.
Are there 3 pumping stations that are associated with that pipeline?
I don't know. They'd have to be pumped, they'd have to be pump stations.
Hey, Lisa, just a second. You'll notice in the back of the room was a sign-in sheet with your name and an email address. So, yeah, Helen, make sure that your email address is on that because we can find those answers out and definitely get back to you as well. Thanks. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, Lisa Kaplan. One is I want to, because I heard your answer about 7 to 7, but that's not at all what I meant. I meant like 1 p.m. and 3 p.m., something like that. So I just want to be strong on that. The next thing is that you now own this, Guenoc now owns the property on the corner of Bugs Canyon and 29. What do you plan to do with that? How could that be leveraged to benefit our community? And why is that not being used for this whole development rather than the infiltration onto the property that Terry Holberg referenced before off 175? So there's multiple questions here. And also I would like to know, with regards to that property, what is your long-term vision for it after the building is complete, for example? What is going to happen with those buildings? Who's going to live there? And what kind of prospects are there for growth? Because as far as I can tell, they're very high density. And so how does that benefit us over time as a community, or do they become like half empty? Like, what is the story with that? Because people go where there's work, so if there's no more work here, they might leave, and then who's going to live there? So just really the long-term vision is what I'm asking about. And I want to be clear, I think that a lot of us sitting here are okay or in favor of the project. We have concerns, and those are in the details, and the devil's in the details. And we just want to be in conversation about that. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Do you have any answers about the properties?
I had go ahead, yeah, okay. I just wanted to, John Hodges again, I just wanted to follow up with the question about the pumping station, and I have a technical memorandum from Sherwood Designs, this is back in 2019. And it talks about the stations and the pipeline, but it doesn't have anything on location. Do you have that in any of your documentation?
I'm looking now, but I don't, off the top of my head, I just don't recall if we actually had a map produced of the pump stations. But I'm certainly going to be responding to this question and getting back to you.
So there hasn't been an EIR on pump station locations?
You know, my only question as to whether or not we specifically identified the location of the pump station. I know that we described that they would be required and that they would have certain types of impacts. But I don't know the actual set location of those pump stations, other than to say that it would be within the right of way. So,
I'm sorry, other than say it would
be within the right of way of the road. So, I'm looking it up right now to see if I can find more details for you.
But if not, please make sure your email address is in the signature. And Lisa, also, just for clarification, sorry, I wasn't sure as I was scribbling down notes to get answers for you. I know you were talking about the parcel that is currently at 29 Butts Canyon. Okay, and questions about how could that be leveraged to benefit the community and that going forward. But as far as the housing, were you talking about the workforce housing over on Santa Clara?
Yeah.
Okay, because my understanding is that's not for construction builders' workforce housing, it's more of ongoing supportive housing for the resort itself, in which case it wouldn't just be here while they're building and then nobody be living there. So, and it also does address, I think it has like a clubhouse or community center, things that are ongoing as amenities for that particular neighborhood. But I'd be happy to get you those maps and that sort of thing.
They're very high density though.
The density is in accordance with the current high density R3 zoning. But yeah, so it does seem a little, it's definitely more dense than our surrounding like 1 acre properties that are in the area. However, it is consistent with what was approved before.
Right, also the units themselves are high density is what I mean, like they're for like multiple families or something. It's kind of like, where do you go from there? Like if we're trying to really develop, then, like maybe you're living in high density and you're low income, and then where do you go from there? Because we don't have the ability to buy two. I mean, it's like, I really am curious.
Sure, no, I think it's an awesome question. And it actually is a question that transcends this project itself. We're currently working on a housing action and implementation plan to sort of gather community vision on how we can improve our county's situation for housing. And a lot of that does address sort of that, here's your starter home. Then as we improve our housing inventory, the people who were in what can be a starter home can move into other options because we'll have other options. So I think that may be kind of where the whole more holistic answer is coming, rather than just being limited to this specific project, which that housing would be in existence to help support the ongoing operations of the resort. But no, I love that question. Thanks.
Shannon, say this quick follow-up. Regarding the off-site well, would that have any benefit for fire suppression in the area? Middletown, West Canyon?
That I don't believe that specific use was proposed as part of the project originally, so I don't think we address that currently in the environmental impact report documents. But that's a good suggestion.
Okay, thank you for saying.
Hi. Thank you so much for putting this meeting on and for giving everybody the opportunity to speak and ask some questions about this project and to understand the process. My name is Monica Rosenthal, and in regard to the housing, I think what Lisa was referring to is that the housing on this particular property is a little bit beyond the density that was described for that parcel in the first place. So it's a little higher density overall, but the houses themselves, I believe within your plan, it's described to be something like 5-bedroom houses that are about 1,200 square feet. So it's 5-bedroom,
1,200 square feet. So I believe that's what Lisa's referring to. And I may be wrong on the 1,200, maybe 1,300 square feet, but still, that's pretty high density for an individual house. And that kind of gives a definition of that house itself. A couple of other things I just wanted to mention was, again, like many other people in the room, this project is great. Everything about the project out at Guenoc is absolutely beautiful, designed really nicely. But for Middletown, it's just a question of, and yes, we've talked about taxes, how that might benefit the school, jobs. Hopefully that would benefit with jobs here in Middletown itself. But with Middletown proper, we have a number of things that are being taken from the Middletown area. It has been shown, I think, over the course of time that the majority of people here like the rural feel of the town. One of our problems is we're moving into the general plan and the area plan development. I think over time, as we've tried to increase density in the area of Middletown, one of the ongoing problems over the last years has been that people generally, they have a lot that maybe is higher density and they're not developing it because here in this area, I believe anyway, a majority of the people like a little elbow room around their place. And then again, going back to the housing, this housing, it's talked about it being very centralized, where it's not. It's on the outskirts of town. And there's no walking provided, sidewalks. This development goes directly to the highway, to Highway 175. If we've got let's even call them 4-bedroom houses, which typically would lead to families there. How are those people going to get, you're going to bus everyone everywhere? When we talk about emissions, what can we do to make this a healthier community and provide access, safe access for family housing if we're calling this to be the central of town? The other thing is with the water. Of course, as other people have said, the well that's located on that lot, and again, this was done in the last area plan that was developed. A number of people in this room really wanted that parcel. I shouldn't say a number. There's a few people that are currently in this room that really wanted that parcel in the Middletown growth boundary. So it's in the Middletown growth boundary, but the problem is that it doesn't have access to the water and it doesn't have access to sewer. So, and if it's going to be part of the growth boundary, it should have access to that. But nonetheless, it's a parcel that's part of the community growth boundary. And now, not knowing it, again, reading some of the materials, it sounded like this development has no plans of developing that parcel. So that's a big chunk of land in our community growth boundary that can't be developed. And then, of course, water that is part of that land might be gone and piped down. Again, for health of community, I would also suggest that if a pipeline is put in that goes from Middletown and you're buying easements and putting in a pipeline, wouldn't that be a great walking, biking trail? From Middletown to Guenoc. So again, that is something that you can give back to the community. Yeah. So really appreciate you taking a look at that. And then the other question that I had is talked about the monitoring of the well. With the monitoring of the well, is a 10-year plan. When does that start? Is it when the well goes into use? Is that when the 10-year starts, or does it start just when the project starts and the wells? So anyway,
when the well starts.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
I appreciate the clarification on that housing issue too. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Breen. I'm one of the developers with Kevin Case. I just want to sort of answer the question in regards to the housing. So when we looked at, let me go, sorry, a second. When we looked at the housing, we were looking at staff housing. We were also concerned that in order to staff the project, that we would be putting pressure on the local community if we came and we let our staff come in and try to rent houses or buy houses. So the other thing that we looked at was we could have built the staff housing on site. It was free land, with a whole lot of land, and it was very easy. But the reason why we wanted to bring the staff housing to Middletown is because we felt that in Middletown, and we're off the main road, so we're tucked away in a way, and then we designed this according to what the zoning allowed for, so we weren't trying to push the boundaries. But we wanted our staff to be in your community. We wanted them to go to the coffee shop. We wanted them to go to the restaurants. We wanted the community to benefit from people, so we could have had them on our property, build our own little village, but we didn't feel that was the right thing for our staff and also for the community. So the staff housing to be in Middletown was a conscious decision of really trying to work with the community. Also by providing housing, it took away pressure, so we did not want to come in and start raising rents and sales prices for houses. So that's why we put the housing in Middletown. We're looking at some of the staff were going to be younger kids, so we were looking at some of them, they share, the bedrooms and they share a kitchen. So again, we tried to put more density with that, so we, again, would take away pressure. We would, instead of kids also, driving to the property every day, we will have buses to alleviate traffic concerns. So I just wanted to address that housing, and we're happy to, as you see tonight, we're very open. We are coming into your community, and we want to be good neighbours. And so we're open to listening to all the suggestions and working together, because the way I look at it, we're going to be here for a long time working with your community.
Mr. Jimmy?
Yes.
Are you planning on busing from the housing project the people to work, like the
Yes, we
one
will.
did?
Well, the last thing we want then is to have 50 cars coming back and forth. So we will be planning buses and we'll have shifts, and so we will try to do that to alleviate traffic concerns. Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you everyone for your support also, we appreciate it.
Linda Deal Dawes again. I forgot to say this part, and I want to say this. I am for the project. My only concern is the community water, making sure that we're good stewards. And I'm kind of curious how you came up with just 10 years, because a lot can happen after 10 years. And if it's not being monitored, how do we know that things aren't going downhill until it's done? And then we're trying to, backpedal, trying to fix it. So or whatever. And I'm really happy because these guys really are willing to try to work and compromise. And one of the things that Kevin said, he goes, it's got to be a give and take. And it's true. They own that property. They own the water rights to that well. Absolutely 110%, but yet they're still willing to try to make sure, because they don't want to take all our water either. So anyway,
And technically, I believe, you just correct me, but I believe the usage that we were looking
If you could speak on the microphone so we can get it on our video, please.
So technically, again, I think you can confirm, I think the usage of what we were looking was 1.8% of the water that's in that. So it was a very minute thing, and obviously the testing, and we will work to extend that to make sure. The last thing we want to do is come in and take water. If there's a drought, we're not stealing people's water, okay? So we can work through that, but again, we've had it all tested properly, and we'll work together to make sure that it's a fair and reasonable for the well.
But at this point, you don't feel like you're going to need it?
No, we're using this for redundancy, but we don't need it. We've got enough wells on it, but we needed to have redundancy back up for the size of the project.
So in the EIR, I heard what you said. It says the new well would be designed with a relatively large diameter 12-inch casing and fitted with either a high-capacity turbine or submersible type pump to yield high flows over
1,000 GPMs.
Helen Owen. We had spoke with them about this as well, and I just wanted on the record. What we had stated is though they are here, they're not the owners. And we believe that they actually 100% are for what's in the best interest of the whole community. But what if somebody comes along later on? So that's what we have to protect.
Absolutely. And according to state law, the use permits, once approved, follow the land, regardless of who owns them or who's running the business. And so that's why the mitigations that you'll see reflected in the final EIR are also going to be integrated into the final conditions and mitigations of the project. So that way, the county has a set of regulations that are beyond who owns the land or runs the project.
Okay, so Ms. Maria, so the question is, the water, Guenoc's bought Sullivan's property, Joe Sullivan's property, where the well, the well is actually on the mansion's property, right?
No.
Okay, that's what it stated in the EIR.
No, it's not.
It stated that it was an easement, but it was on the mansion property, and that's in the EIR, Mr. Fletcher. Just so I can send it.
I'll go ahead and make note of that for clarification.
But it said it was on the easement for them to come in. So, and actually I spoke with the owner of the mansion and he stated that he did own the well as well. So, getting back to my question, is the water is owned by that piece of property there, but is it legal and that they can take it and move it? When, for instance, in Calistoga, when they were taking water, they had to have permits to take it from another location to be processed and sold. So that's my question.
Great question. I know that we do have county regulations regarding the exportation of water outside the county, as well as limitations on who can be transporting water. But I think that's limited to cannabis permits, I'm not sure. Anyway, we do have regulations regarding water. And I don't know about any state law of within the county jurisdiction moving it from parcel to parcel, but we'll make sure that that's covered. I do appreciate your question. Thank you.
One of the things that it says in the EIR is that they may not use the existing well, that they have the option to build another well, which I would assume would be on their property at that point. Is that correct?
It's not a sealed well anyway.
Thank you.
Good.
Good, keep them coming.
I have a comment that's regarding the well. That's my main concern. And I tend to be prickly, so I'm just gonna be me. You know.
Could you state your name?
Eileen Anderson. Anyway, so the Valley Fire, we had meetings when we were down evacuated, and the officials come in and they make big promises. And then, you know, we had a big meeting here at the high school and they brought in a guy, you know, I played football on this here field and I have your best interest at heart. And, you know, then years later, they didn't have our best interest at heart. It cost my mom almost $19,000 to get her almost half-acre lot cleared. You know, they were going to take care of us. They were going to do the right thing because their heart's in the right place. But it never is. And so I know you guys aren't the owners, you're representatives. And I just hope that you don't burn this community like we've been burned a few times. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Good job. Great impression.
I'll feel your pain.
Judd Hodges again. So when we run that pipeline down Butts Canyon, can we tap into it? The neighbors? Can we get water?
You have to give them an easement, Growers can't. It's gonna be expensive easement.
Well, I know folks can't say yes if you don't ask, but there are regulations that I would actually refer to special districts regarding a water pipe becoming a community water source. So, yeah, that's not a simple yeah. But bless your heart.
Terry Morgan, back to the Middletown housing. And again, density is a concern for me, and I think that the plans were something that a previous owner of the property had kind of set up, and I believe that you guys had adopted it. And when they originally came up, I'm not sure everybody was in agreement. I mean, I understand it complies to plans, but again, I'm not sure it's really what the whole community wants. And, you know, nobody wants anything in their backyard, right, that doesn't suit them. And that's my concern. I mean, I think the things that are going out at the Guenoc Valley, I mean, I think that's really nice. And yes, I'm hoping that it will benefit our community and help us out financially and everything. But again, I think the density is an issue. Again, the bus commute is, you know, is that every 8 hours? And so I just want to go on record with those things. Please, thank you.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
This is great, and I want to encourage any leftover questions out there to come forward. I won't give you as hard a time as I just gave you. And also, thanks, Sally. After you leave here tonight and you think about something that you meant to ask and forgot, still feel free to take a picture of that email address and send it in. We really want to hear it. Thanks.
Anini Hioni Kalaka, Kotsa, Hoika, Homa Guenoc, Kotsa, Waka. My name is Sally Peterson. I'm an enrolled member at Middletown Rancheria. This property that is being developed is the original home of my people. My 3 times great-grandmother is listed on some old BIA census rolls. And she was called a Guenoc stock, kind of like cattle, but that's just the way it was back then. So she lived there on the land along with my 2 times great-grandmother, my great-grandmother and my grandmother. And they also lived on the Comstock land as well, yeah. So we are in support of the development. And we are in support because the Maha group and this development and the folks that are involved in that have been open and willing to work with the tribe to protect our cultural resources and mitigate with us. Because we know that there are a lot of sites, villages, ceremony houses, and cemetery grave sites that are out there from where our people were. And so we are grateful that we're able to work with you on that. And had we not, we've been fighting tooth and nail. And if anything should change, we'll fight tooth and nail. But right now, everything seems very smooth going, and we're anxious to work with you on that when it does come for moving the dirt and the ground and so forth. As far as the community, I've lived here now, all my relatives have lived here for a long time, but I've actually lived here for about 25 years now. And I've seen a lot of change in the community in that time. And, our casino, when we did the expansion, we were real happy about that. And we have a hard time finding people to work because there's not enough housing. And so housing is a huge problem in our community. And the tribe has a property that we purchased right after the Valley Fire when the apartments burnt down. And we purchased that in the hopes of rebuilding right away because the community needed it. But then building costs got so high and we couldn't get the funding, and we're still struggling to get gap funding for that. And perhaps we could partner on something like that to bring housing to our area because it is needed. And it would help to bring jobs if we had adequate housing in our area. It is a huge problem, so I'm hoping that we could work together on that. So, and I am also grateful for the forum that you put together so that everybody can voice their concerns and their questions and so forth. So thank you, Koika.
I feel like we're getting to a good ending point, but I just want to double check. All right, well, I want to thank you again so much for taking like prime dinner time and to be here to share your input with us. It's very important.